The first stone thrown at Eliza Harper was not made of rock, but of silence. It landed the day her mother stopped asking, gently at first, then never again, when the baby would come. Eliza felt it in the hush that followed every family meal, in the way neighbors' eyes slid past her belly as if it were an empty field that had failed its purpose. By 26, in a town where women her age already chased toddlers through dusty streets, Eliza had been given a name she never chose, Barren. And once a town gives you a name like that, it doesn't let go easily. Eliza lived in Cedar Ridge, a small farming town tucked between cornfields and old judgments. It was the kind of place where news traveled faster than the river after spring rain, and where tradition sat heavy on people's shoulders. She had married young, like everyone else, full of hope and soft laughter. When the children didn't come, whispers did. First sympathetic, then suspicious, then cruel. When her husband, Thomas, died in a wagon accident just 3 years into their marriage, the whispers sharpened into something uglier. A woman without a man, without children, what use was she? Her mother-in-law was the first to say it out loud. God closed your womb for a reason, she muttered one afternoon, not quite to Eliza, not quite to herself. The words stuck like thorns. Soon others echoed them, some with pity, others with relief that it wasn't their daughter being talked about in that tone. Eliza tried to be invisible. She took sewing jobs, helped neighbors with their children, smiled when she was supposed to smile. She held other women's babies and felt joy for them. Real joy, but it was laced with a quiet grief she carried like a second heartbeat. At night, alone in her small room, she pressed her palm against her stomach and whispered apologies to a future that never came. The idea to send her west did not arrive as a kindness, though it wore the mask of one. A distant cousin in Montana needed help at a boarding house near the railway. Fresh air, they said. A new start. But Eliza heard the truth underneath. There's nothing for you here. You are a reminder of what didn't work. Asterisk. On the morning she left, the town gathered not to wish her well, but to watch. Some pretended it was concern. Others didn't bother pretending at all. A woman she'd grown up with leaned toward another and whispered, not quietly enough, maybe the West will finally make something of her. Laughter followed, short, sharp, dismissive. Eliza climbed onto the train with one suitcase and a heart worn thin. As the whistle blew, she didn't wave. She stared straight ahead, afraid that if she looked back, she would break into pieces too small to gather again. The journey west was long, rattling, and uncertain. The landscape changed slowly, then all at once, green giving way to wide, open skies that made Eliza feel both terrified and free. In Montana, the air smelled cleaner, sharper. The boarding house sat near the edge of a growing town, where men came and went chasing work, dreams, or escape. It wasn't home, but it was honest. You worked, you earned, you stayed, or you didn't. Eliza learned quickly. She scrubbed floors until her knuckles cracked, cooked meals that filled the halls with warmth, listened to stories from strangers who, for a night or two, trusted her with their loneliness. No one there knew her as Barren. She was just Eliza, the woman with steady hands and a listening heart. One winter evening, a man collapsed in the snow outside the boarding house. He was a railway worker, injured and feverish, with no family nearby. Others hesitated. Helping him would cost time, money, and risk. Eliza didn't hesitate at all. She dragged him inside, cleaned his wounds, sat by his bed through nights when his fever burned high. When he survived, he wept, not just from relief, but from the shock of being saved by someone who owed him nothing. Word spread. Slowly, the boarding house became known not just for clean rooms, but for kindness. Eliza found herself managing the place when her cousin fell ill, making decisions, hiring help, standing taller than she ever had back home. She was still lonely, but it was a different kind now, one with room to breathe. It was there she met Samuel Reed. Samuel wasn't loud or impressive. He was a widower with a quiet voice and a past he didn't speak of easily. He came to the boarding house to repair a broken staircase and stayed longer than planned, not because of the work, but because Eliza offered him coffee and asked how his day had been, and truly listened to the answer. Their friendship grew in small, careful steps. Walks under the open sky. Shared meals after long days. Silences that felt safe. Samuel never asked about children. Never looked at her with expectation or judgment. He looked at her as if she were already enough. When Eliza finally told him about her past, about the name they gave her, the way she was sent away, her voice shook. Samuel didn't rush to reassure her. He simply said, "I'm sorry they did that to you." It was the first time anyone had acknowledged the harm without trying to fix it or explain it away. They married quietly the following spring. Not because Eliza needed saving, but because they chose each other. Life settled into a rhythm: work, laughter, shared purpose. Eliza told herself not to hope for more. She had learned the cost of hope. Then one morning, she woke with a strange heaviness in her body, a fatigue she couldn't shake. Weeks passed. A local doctor confirmed what Eliza barely dared to imagine. She was with child. Fear came first, not joy. Fear that it would be taken away. Fear that her body would fail again. But months passed, and the life inside her grew strong. Then another surprise: twins. 2 heartbeats where she once believed there would never be one. The night they were born was long and perilous. Snow fell thick outside as Eliza labored, her strength tested in ways she never expected. When the first cry rang out, then the second, sharp and clear, tears streamed down her face, not from pain, but from disbelief. She held them close, whispering promises she had waited her whole life to make. Motherhood was exhausting, overwhelming, and beautiful. Eliza learned quickly that love didn't divide, it multiplied. The twins, a boy and a girl, filled the boarding house with life. Travelers lingered just to hear their laughter. Samuel watched Eliza with a quiet awe, seeing her not as the town once had, but as she truly was: capable, resilient, fierce with love. Years passed. The boarding house expanded. Eliza became a respected figure in the town, sought out for advice, trusted in moments of crisis. Her past no longer defined her, but it had shaped her compassion. She hired women with nowhere else to go, gave chances where others saw risks, remembered what it felt like to be dismissed. The letter from Cedar Ridge came unexpectedly. Her mother had fallen ill. There was a note at the bottom, written in an unfamiliar hand: "People ask about you. They say you've done well." Asterisk. Eliza held the letter for a long time. Part of her wanted to let the past stay buried. Another part, the braver part, knew it was time to return, not for their approval, but for her own peace. She arrived with Samuel and the twins on a clear summer morning. The town looked smaller than she remembered, its judgments less towering than before. People gathered, just as they had years ago, but this time, the silence was different. Whispers followed her, but they were confused now. She saw the shock in their faces as the twins ran ahead, laughing, calling her name. Someone gasped. Someone else crossed themselves. An old neighbor approached, voice trembling. "Are those yours?" Eliza smiled, not sharp, not bitter. Just honest. "Yes," she said. "They are." No speeches were made. None were needed. The truth stood before them, living and breathing. Some apologized. Others couldn't meet her eyes. Eliza visited her mother, held her hand, offered forgiveness where none had been earned, because carrying resentment no longer served her. When she left Cedar Ridge again, it wasn't in shame or exile. It was with her head high, her family beside her, and a heart finally unburdened. Back west, life went on, ordinary, extraordinary life. Eliza watched her children grow, taught them kindness not as weakness but as strength. She told them, gently, that people sometimes fear what they don't understand, and that the world can be cruel, but it can also be generous beyond imagining. In the end, Eliza realized the greatest miracle wasn't the twins sleeping upstairs, or the life she built from nothing. It was this: she had been broken open, not ruined. Sent away, not erased. Mocked, but not defined. And from the place they tried to discard her, she returned not to prove them wrong, but to show what was always possible when a human heart is given room to grow. Hope, she learned, doesn't always arrive on time. Sometimes it takes the long way west.